Hi everybody, Scott Brubaker, broker here with Royal LePage Middletown Realty, and we're here today to discuss the dilemma that people are facing with being homebound and dealing with finance and shelter during these times of the COVID-19 crisis. And I'll just read you an excerpt from Canada, the National Post from yesterday, is that nearly half of Canadian households have lost work due to the COVID-19 shutdown, and 66% say their employer is not covering their lost hours. Of those who lost work, 44% of Canadians say that their household has been affected, and 18% say that they're anticipating that their household will be affected financially. So I'd like to introduce our guest panel today. We've got Heather Holjavac, independent financial planner, and thank you, Heather, for joining us today. And Raymond Diaz is a mortgage agent with Mortgage Alliance, and we're going to just discuss a few of the issues related to how to move forward for people so that they can cover their expenses and deal with shelter in their lives. So just starting this off, I'm going to start off maybe with Heather to say, the stock market has been a roller coaster for a lot of people, and it's affected income because a lot of people that have retired or even seniors are depending on that income. What's your take on the investment portfolios these days?
Well, it is very discerning for people, I see the word scary out there. I don't want to say scary because people may not have thought it scary until they hear that word, but it is discerning to see your portfolio decline. What we have to remember is that the stock market is reactive to uncertainty, and that's really what we've seen is uncertainty. And there's been huge swings, 1,000-point gains and losses. So it is just as easy for the market to go down as it is to come back when there is more confidence with the recent stimulus packages, with the recent, economic packages for individuals specifically. So I think it's a good way for you to look at it, is your portfolio set up appropriately for you? And, some things that you would want to look at is, are you diversified enough? Do you have the appropriate investments? A well-balanced portfolio will have exposure to not only some stocks, but primarily dividend-paying stocks that will continue to pay dividends, and interest-bearing investments like corporate bonds that will continue to pay investment income regardless of the underlying asset. As
right.
Time goes on, those assets will recover. So I think it's a good time.
What about people that are in the middle of watching the stock market roll down and roll up again? Like, what do they do?
I think, again, that it's so knee-jerk and it's so immediate that if you decide that you want to sell, so for someone that saw, there was the biggest drop and they said, you know what, I want to get out, I want to sell, they would have missed the last 3 up days. And, right. The market will always balance itself out. And again, it's really just making sure that you have the appropriate portfolio for you. What I do with my clients is make sure that they have at least 2 to 3 months cash available at any point in time. Right. And if you're doing redemptions, then at least 3 to 6 months of cash, so that if there is a market downturn, you have that available. So right. For people that are now looking at drawing down their portfolio, again, you may want to look at, do you actually have to take it out of your portfolio? So there is new provisions that have allowed RIF required redemptions to be reduced by 25%. So there are measures that are in place for that. And
so what does that mean to the normal person then that's watching the stock market just like, on this roller coaster? What do they do?
I would recommend just staying pat, because at the end of the day, the portfolio will come back. I've been in the industry for 30 years, and I've seen at least 6 different iterations of this. I mean, it's
Right.
this, and every time we think it's not the same. It's not, it's a different time. But what's good is that the governments, for the most part, are producing these big stimulus packages that are
Right.
helping, and it shows that as long as there's confidence in with
Right.
the governments, then the markets
Right.
will come back. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
what I'm, kind of recommending, just stay pat for now. But again, it's a good time to reevaluate things. Maybe it's a good time
Yeah.
to, add more fixed income or add more cash to your portfolio in, just
Right.
not selling everything, but, maybe a
Sure.
20%,
Sure.
change.
Yeah. Good. And how about you, Raymond? So, people are homebound. They're stuck at home. They've been laid off, or, if you're running your own small business, then, there's a cash crunch there. What can be done on your mortgage, on the mortgage side of things, to help hedge, the cash crunch?
Now, that's definitely that's a lot of the stresses that's top of mind for a lot of my clients that I talk to on a daily basis. Certainly mortgage is one of the bigger expenses that most households have. We've also known that, as most banks and CMHC and Genworth and Canada Guarantee, which are the mortgage insurers, they've all have communicated that there's up to 6 months worth of mortgage relief. Now, it's been broadcasted. It's a very good relief for most people that needs it. So
Right.
for those cases where you've lost your job, or maybe you are sick so you can't go to work, or you're in a scenario where you're caring for somebody that's sick, the banks, credit unions, trust companies, most lending institutions are definitely on board with giving us relief. Now, the relief could be anywhere from 1 month to as much as 6 months. Now,
Right.
not everybody that asks for it will get it. So if your
Okay.
income is not affected,
Okay.
more likely than not, the lenders could say, on a case by case basis that you may not qualify.
Right.
There's also
So
relief.
what would be the first step then that somebody would need to take if they wanted to delay their mortgage payments?
So there's two main components, or two main ways to ask for the relief. One is through the branches.
Okay.
A lot of the banks are taking in a first come first serve basis for the client that wants to get that mortgage deferral relief. Now, it's not just the mortgage deferral that they're entertaining. They're also entertaining credit card payments, loan payments, car loan payments. Or student loans as well. Now, one way is to go through the branch on a first come first served basis, and most financial institutions, we're talking about banks, credit unions, trust companies, they also have telephone numbers that you can call. Now,
Okay.
the only thing I would caution most clients when I give the information, I tell them to be very, very patient. Like I said, a lot of people have been affected. A lot of people has this top of mind. So a lot of people are going through the branches, calling the telephone number. Now, as of yesterday, the last communication I had with a client that called, it takes around 3 hours to be on the phone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And at least 3 hours.
Wow. Wow. That's got to be really frustrating for people that are already kind of in a state of distress to
Yeah.
have to wait on the phone and be patient. So, yeah.
It's no doubt. I mean, the difficulty of that, people that's walking into the branches that we usually say, you know what, it's a lot of the branches for most major banks have been closed. And the
Mhm.
ones that are open, they have typically reduced hours. So
Right.
with the uptick of this service need for deferral of mortgage payments and loan payments and such, there's a little bit of congestion there. So
Right.
that's why I kind of ask them to make sure that if you're doing that, be very
Sure.
patient.
Mhm. Okay. How about if somebody wants to take advantage of lower interest rates? I think rates went down. They dropped the lending rates down last week. How does somebody take advantage of that?
So the March 13th Bank of Canada reduction in interest rate by 50 basis points is real, if you have a current variable rate mortgage that's already there, you would have seen a 50 basis point decrease in your actual interest rate.
Okay. Right.
Now, negotiated deals today on fixed rates and variable rates actually went up.
Right.
But one of the things that most people didn't realize, although the rates went down on Friday, Bank of Canada rate went down on Friday, March 13th, that same weekend, most of the financial institutions actually bumped up the interest rates.
Okay.
Now,
Oh, wow.
the reason for it is liquidity. Banks are anticipating that most people that have income interruptions will likely look at credit to facilitate some of their expenses. So that would be, that would be if you lost your job, if you're business for self, and you're not operating with the same amount of revenue, or you got sick, so you're home, or you're caring for somebody that can't stay by themselves. So it would be your kids and they can't go to daycare, or
Right.
somebody that's sick. Now,
Right.
like I said, the liquidity component is that the banks are anticipating that more people, and they have used their credit cards, unsecured line of credit, home equity line of credit to facilitate to pay for their expenses. Now, the
Okay.
other part, aside from liquidity, is the risk. So banks are anticipating that the likelihood of default is a little bit higher today
Mm-hmm.
than what it was,
Right.
and the
Sure.
cost of money is a little bit higher today as well.
Right. Right. Sure. And how about other options as far as like refinancing your mortgage or getting like a home equity line of credit so you've got a little bit of extra cash to work with in case you need it?
Yeah, I mean, being in the real estate market, you probably know that within the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, we've seen the real estate market perform really, really well, except for, bumps here, like little dips here and there. Um, so a lot of people are still sitting on quite a bit of equity. Now, if you're still employed and you have good credit history and you've got equity to take advantage of, definitely a home equity line of credit can help you sustain a longer period of income interruption later on if you do get sick, or maybe you have something to consolidate. If you're employed right now, I would say I implore you, go and talk to your banks, go talk to your mortgage professional, because it is important. Now, if you have some level of income interruption, so if you already lost your regular income, so you got laid off, you're on EI, or like I said, you're staying home and you've got short-term disability or something like that. For those cases, it's a lot harder because you still need to have income to qualify for these new home equity line of credits and stuff. So
All right.
definitely a good product to have as a plan B.
So you're just
But
better off to get it done, to get it approved while you're working and employed, rather than wait. Because once if you do get laid off or lose your income stream, then it's going to be harder to get the home equity line of credit or other kind of credit. Yeah.
no
Okay.
doubt.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. And too, in real estate, it's become it's not business as usual for sure. Things have slowed down, and there are people that are still going to be buying and selling in real estate, and typically those are people that have already sold a home and they need to buy. There's other people that need shelter. They don't own a home and they need a place to live. And then there's seniors as well that may need to move and sell because of extended care needs that are going on an ongoing basis as well. And so it really has changed the way that real estate works now as well, that we're kind of into that essential services mode. And but having said that, some people are still moving, and we have to have systems in place now to deal with the virus and the COVID-19 so that people can still safely buy and sell real estate if the need is there. And so there's a number of measures that have gone into place for buyers and sellers to protect them, and I think a lot of it really is going online. We've seen a lot of change now just in the last week or two of no more showings, but people are showing their homes through virtual tours, and putting a clause in any offers that that if they do buy, or if there's an agreement in place, that they'll show the home based on that agreement, and limit it only to the buyers that are on the agreement as well. So I think, you know, kind of moving to that virtual space is going to help facilitate a lot of this move through the harder times as well, and still allow people to do the essential things that they need to do in the business. So, but it's a tough time, you know, all around for a lot of people, and everybody's, I think, you know, there's good things that are going on as well in terms of you know, families spending more time together. I know we just got a new puppy, and he's now 9 weeks old, and gives us a chance to spend more time to train the puppy, and my mother-in-law's moved in with us as well to help out, and so we're getting a little bit more family time than we would have had in the past as well. So what are the other measures? I'm going to open this up to the panel here, but what are the measures that are in place now for anybody that is really stuck without a job, in temporary layoff, or small business owners that that need some financial help because they're in a crunch? Heather, why don't you kick that one off?
Well, I think that, you know, it's ever changing, and, you know, the newest initiative by the government is this new $2,000, so it's called the, let me see if I can find it, the new revised Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. So basically, anyone who doesn't fall in the category of, you know, being laid off and being eligible for EI, so small businesses who don't contribute to EI, if you have an extenuating circumstance that reduces your income, then you can apply for this. So the EI benefits are done through Service Canada. This benefit is done through Revenue Canada, so CRA. So anyone that thinks they can qualify for this should apply, but you need to apply on the Revenue Canada site. So one thing to remember is that if you don't have a CRA My account already, it can take up to 10 business days to register, get an online code. So if you think you might qualify, you should basically register for a CRA My account right away, so that when it's available in early April, then you can apply for it. And
that's great advice.
Yeah, so it sometimes takes, because, you know, Revenue Canada still has their check and balance where they, you know, you need to know basically what's on your tax return, your social insurance number, and a couple other questions, and then they send you a code, and then basically you end up being able to register that way. But it does take time, because it's all their check and balances that, you know, they mail you something. So so you really have to, you know, be aware that there's a timeline before that happens if you don't have a CRA My account. A couple other things they've done is they've, you know, waived the requirement for medical form and the 1 week waiting period for EI. And then there's also some lower income benefits. So there's a one-time additional GST payment if you qualify in May, between $400 to $600 for single or family. They've increased the Canada Child Benefit by $300 per child, and as you mentioned, there's the 6-month interest-free and non-payment period for student loans. So the other thing they've also is the deferring of the income tax. So if you are filing your tax, you can defer it to June 1st. However, you do have to be mindful that the GST benefits, the child tax benefits, and you know, other trillion benefits that you might get start on June 1st. So if you don't file your tax return a couple weeks before that, you won't get those benefits right away. So, you know, make sure that you check with your tax professional to, you know, maybe not delay it till June 1st. So you can still file your return, but you can defer your payment until August 31st. So there you would get your benefit. You could file, get all the benefits, and then defer your payment if you end up owing anything.
Right. Awesome. How about if you're a small business owner and you know, you've got a cash crunch? You know, you're shut down. You're not an essential service, and you know, you're feeling the crunch. What any options there?
Well, like there's the $2,000 benefit, which is not unfortunately immediate. You know, you can, the Business Development Bank has small business loans that you can request that. And again, you know, options to defer payments. So some of my clients have rental properties, so they're looking at people that have lost their job and don't have income. So really for them, the best thing is to kind of defer their mortgage payments so that they, you know, those all income streams match up in, I guess, 4 to 6 months.
Right, right. Sure. Raymond, how about you? Anything to add to that, or?
Well, obviously, Heather captured a lot of the income components of the relief that we know that's coming from the government. With regards to, let's say on the expense side, property taxes can be deferred. Both Mississauga and City of Toronto have made announcements on how long. I think it's 60 days for City of Toronto. I think 90 days for the City of Mississauga.
Right.
There's also, you know, you've got certain things such as utility payment being deferred. So that's another, you know, one way to kind of look at
So
some.
your gas, hydro, water. Okay.
Yeah. So from that perspective, certainly those are some relief.
Do you know what you have to do to qualify for that? Do you just call them, or?
The tax deferral, I think, is just they skip the payment and stuff.
Okay.
And they defer a lot of the payment that's due in April that
Right.
for the next 90 days, and that's something that's due in May for the next 90 days.
Right.
Now, there's, like I said, you know, earlier we mentioned the deferral of the mortgage payments, the deferral of
Right.
the loans for the personal
Right.
side. On the commercial side as well, know that most banks on, you know, we're talking about the CIBCs, the TDs, the RBCs, the Bank of Montreal's, and so on, National Bank and Scotiabank, they have announced that on their commercial small business side that they are entertaining on a case-by-case, if you're affected by COVID-19, that they will also look at deferring your commercial loans.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Awesome. And if
I
you
think-
if you do come down with COVID-19, is there any benefits for you to stay home, or if you're a caregiver of somebody that has the virus?
You know, I don't think there's any extra benefits, but if you're under 65 and you know, working and you have to stop working, then it would be, again, the progression of EI and the $2,000 emergency response benefit. The other thing is, if someone comes down with COVID-19 and they can't work and it's a medical issue, you know, it does take time, but you technically could then apply potentially for the disability tax credit and defer or reduce your tax payments that way. But
Oh, okay.
other than those, you know, emergency measures, it would really, you know, my recommendation is just, you know, to call your bank and say, you know, this is the option. This is when I think I'm going to, you know, this is what I have to do. And really, I mean, health does come first. And, you know, we do live in a society where, you know, we have a lot of expenses, and, you know, Toronto is expensive. And, but I think if you're proactive, then, you know, you definitely can get some assistance, you know, to waive, you know, different expenses that you might have.
Right. Right. Okay. Awesome. So how about in terms of the, you know, I mean, everything that we've done in the past from our own, you know, working with our own clients has been, you know, pretty much contact based and meetings and that kind of thing. And I know, you know, from the standpoint of us realtors, you know, we use DocuSign. We have, you know, access for texting and emails, and we can do video conferencing now. So, you know, instead of doing meetings like, you know, normally we would do, we can video conference just to minimize contact to the absolute minimum. Any options from your standpoint on how to work with you and in this environment now?
Now, for us being on the mortgage agent side, we are able to communicate through these web channels over the phone as well. And we do utilize DocuSign or electronic signature for a lot of our applications and so on. From a lender perspective, Certainly, some lenders are fully on board with electronic signatures and such. Some are not so, but they're definitely looking at it more closely right now.
Right.
The disadvantage of it is there's still technically some touch points that need to happen, such as appraisals. That's a big pain point right now that most lending institutions are starting to look at alternatives for the full appraisals. And then obviously on the legal side, so when somebody purchases, they still have to go to a lawyer and sign something. And as far as I know, from the lawyer perspective, they still have to see something. So on my side, on my component, we are able to work remotely and service the clients through electronic signatures, communicate through web video conferencing or telephone.
Right. Right. How about you, Heather? Anything to add to
So,
that? Or?
yeah, I mean, everything that I do, I can do via video chat or via mostly phone call, because a lot of the clients that I deal with are older and prefer the phone call and actually prefer the in-house visit. But unfortunately, because I deal with that demographic, I really don't. I'm not saying that I may or may not get it, but I'm more likely a carrier than someone that would be negatively affected by the COVID-19. So I really don't want to go visit people. But I can do everything virtually as well. So I also, know that, for tax preparation, if people are concerned about, getting there's taxes prepared, if you're working with someone who is an authorized e-filer, then you can download all of your tax information from the Revenue Canada site, as long as you get authorization from the client to do that. And then basically a phone call to just ask the other questions, like, property taxes, medical expenses, things like that. So that all can be done virtually as well as signatures, either scanned or now you can just take a picture of it and download and print and take a picture of it. So so there's always ways to access things virtually.
Yeah, and to minimize contact in these days when we're really homebound, and that's what we're supposed to be, staying at home and really not getting out. And the Royal LePage also is doing some things that are helping for closing deals that are pending, and one of those is electronic fund transfers. So instead of dropping checks off now, doing transferring the funds electronically, both deposit checks as well as any kind of lawyer transfers at closing can all be done electronically. And even further than that, there are some things that could possibly be shut down, as deals are in progress. Like if you sold your house and you're waiting for a closing, if something like the land registry office closes because of the pandemic, it could actually put a delay into your closing. And so we're putting on a clause in all of our new offers now to anticipate that there could be a delay in closing, and that if there is a delay, that it would be done by both the buyer and the seller, and it's agreed upon, so that any kind of critical path that can't be accomplished is accounted for, and we can still close deals. So so I think that all around things change by the day. I know it's been a roller coaster of information coming at us, and not only for our own local situations, but across the country and across the world is changing daily, and so we're just kind of keeping track, I guess, on a local basis, how that's affecting us, and that really has a big impact as far as work that we can do, and how we can help our clients as well. So so is there anything else that for the good of people that are homebound and wondering what's next and what they can do, that you can think of?
One thing that I would also just add for people to be mindful of is, because we are more virtual right now, that to be very careful of scams and things that so for one thing, Revenue Canada will never send you a text or an email saying that you have a tax refund. And if you're not sure about something, just ask someone, ask a professional, reach out to someone or even a friend or a neighbor just to say, does this make sense? Because, unfortunately it's in all events where things can, change rapidly and get more virtual, and people are actually stressed with money. A lot of these scams look attractive, and they're getting very good at making things look real. So just, if you're not sure, just ask someone, for a second opinion. Does this really make sense?
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, I really think, it's very uncertain times, but, we as people are resilient, and, this is just a new starting point for, dealing with what's really important. I think remembering what's really important. And again, if there's any questions people have, there's many professionals that will help you with the right choices and decisions.
Yeah. Raymond, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo what Heather said there. Obviously, there's a lot of information out there, and certainly there's a lot of noise. So when you read so much and everybody's on social media, everybody's got their own take on something. Sometimes having a forum like this or knowing somebody local, if you have real estate questions, certainly, having the ability to pick up the phone and call Scott and have his take on it will definitely help. I think from that perspective, our jobs become that much more important because we can filter out some of the noise. We go through the sources there, and we can talk, on the micro level to somebody's, households, family's budget, household family's income. And from that perspective, like I said, it's important that we reached out to our clients. It's important that, they get a hold of their own, specific local experts. Because like I said, when we hear Prime Minister saying this and the Premier saying that, and, talking about the economists from, big banks and all that kind of stuff, sometimes filtering that through, a local expert is very important, because that's where we actually relieve some of the stress as opposed to getting overwhelmed by the noise that's out there.
Yeah, it's so I agree, and with both you guys, Heather and Raymond. Just reaching out. It's very safe to make a phone call or send an email out. You don't have to leave your home, and you can get good advice and get things rolling that you might need to have in place to move forward and to protect yourself and your family, and financially, and certainly when it comes to shelter as well, and the home that you live in. So feel free to reach out, and at the same time, I think it's a good time to regroup and spend more time with family, and call family and friends, and see how everybody's doing. And if you do happen to have to go to the grocery store for groceries, maybe pick up an extra something for a neighbor, an elderly neighbor, or neighbors that need help, or take turns in picking up items, so that you're not minimizing the number of trips you have to make to go to the grocery store. And aside from that, there's really nothing else that you really need to do to be out and about. Banking can be done online these days, and most of the services have gone online as well. So I guess the advice from probably all three of us is stay home, stay safe, and just keep a good mindset. It's still permitted and still safe to get out walking, as long as you keep your distance from people, and kind of keep connected, to your family, friends, and peers, and stay healthy. So with that, I appreciate that. Appreciate the time that both Heather and Raymond have spent here today, and discussing the issue of HomeBound, and HomeBound with COVID, and what's next. So thanks again, Raymond and Heather, and we'll stay in touch.
Thanks,
Great.
Scott.
Thanks.
Okay, have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.